This is a video comparison that's been in my edit queue for a while now. I shot everything and did the rough cut about a month ago, and I wanted to actually create a script that kind of gave this video a good outline as to the main points. Comparing these three cameras that I'll go over, this camera review is going to be a little unique in that I'm actually comparing basically three different categories of devices. We've got a mirrorless camera, the Sony a6300, which is what I primarily shoot everything on, including this part of the video right now, a pocket-sized gimbal, the Osmo Pocket, and the cell phone, the Google Pixel 3, which I'm actually going to be recording the audio on here. But in addition to having different form factors and features, they also offer different pros and cons. So depending on your use, what you actually need it for, you're going to see that some of these devices are going to stand out from the others.
Oh, it's the Osmo Pocket! It's a little rocket!
This video is actually going to be a good one for anyone who is either deciding to get one of them for the first time. They either don't have any, or they have one of the devices, because chances are you have a cell phone and you're thinking, well, I want to up my video quality. Should I get something cheaper and more compact that's also a gimbal like the Osmo Pocket? Or should I go for something that's generally considered more professional that has a lot more features like the Sony a6300 here, or something similar to it? So again, with the benchmark being that most people have a cell phone, maybe not necessarily the Pixel 3, but a modern cell phone which would take comparable video quality, and you can see on DxOMarkRatings.com for mobile phones that the Pixel 3 has a lot of competition right now, and you can kind of see how it compares in the video category specifically, because that's what we're focusing on here. I come from a video background, so that's where my expertise is going to come into play. But with most people having the cell phone, the question becomes, again, should I get the Osmo Pocket or should I get something like the Sony a6300? Which is the best fit for me? And while this isn't going to be a super in-depth comparison, you'll get a good idea for the differences in video quality between the three devices. And then specifically, this is going to be focusing on low light, because I do a lot of my shoots usually after work. So when am I mostly shooting my videos? It's going to be in the evening or later into the night. That's when I have most free time. So I know a lot of people are in a similar situation where a lot of the videos that they're going to be doing are in the night for one reason or another. So this is a good comparison, specifically looking at low light footage on the three devices. And then of course, being that I have all three, it puts me in a pretty unique situation where I can actually say, this is what one device does best in a certain category, and this is where some are similar, but this is a little better. And I'm going to be explaining how I use all three in my video projects. So what's great is obviously the Sony and Osmo Pocket are considered more prosumer, more professional level cameras, whereas the Google Pixel 3 is more for your average consumer who just wants to take it out of their pocket and be good to go from the start. So the Osmo Pocket and the Sony have manual settings, of course, out of the box, whereas the Pixel 3 unfortunately does not, even though some of its competitors do. You would have to download a third-party app for the Google Pixel 3 if you want to get any manual settings for video specifically. The Google Pixel actually touts itself as having all these smart features. It's got really good stabilization, more so in the daytime. And it's got all these other smart features, but they're only usable through its native app. So that's why I actually went installing a third-party app and just stuck with the native app that comes on the phone. As a result, we don't have any manual settings to set on the Google Pixel 3. However, for the Sony, I capped the ISO at 1600 for all these tests, and for the Osmo Pocket, I capped it at 800. I found that for those two cameras, capping it at those respective ISOs gets you the least. That's any further past that, you're going to start noticing some pretty noticeable grain. Right off the bat, you're going to notice that the Pixel 3 really stands out from the other two, being that it doesn't have a flat profile, and it's actually compensating for the low light, so it's actually overblowing the image. It's much brighter than it really was, and as a result, it's very noisy and it's less usable. The settings that it kind of auto does, the magic it does behind the scenes in the app, is really great for photos. I've found like you can get some impressive results, and oftentimes they'll be brighter and more noticeable in the details than a lot of cameras, even like the Sony, because it's doing all this magic in the background and combining a bunch of different exposures and things like that. However, it's not great for low light videos, you see, because it's trying to do things that I wouldn't want it to. Had I been able to actually cap the ISO and put a flat picture profile, it probably would have been a lot closer in comparison to the other two cameras. And now, like, my first biggest surprise was actually when using the kit lens on the Sony a6300 and comparing it to the Osmo Pocket was just how similar in low light the footage of the Osmo Pocket could be when using D-Cinelike and capping the ISO at 800 compared to the Sony and its flat profile setting that I custom made and capping its ISO at 1600. A lot of scenes, so I put in Premiere, I had each camera in its own track, and I would toggle between the Osmo Pocket and Sony just as a test. I was blindly doing it, so I wasn't seeing if it was enabled or not. For some scenes, it was actually hard to tell the difference between the Osmo Pocket and the Sony, which was a really big surprise to me. It just goes to show how good that little sensor it's not even a 2-inch sensor, it's what, 3/4 of an inch or something like that? Even my new DJI Mavic Pro 2 has a larger sensor at 2 inches, and then the APS-C on the Sony is just like tremendously larger. Not full frame, but still a lot bigger than the Osmo Pocket. But a lot of the scenes, even in low light, it was really hard to tell. It was only when I got to really, really low light scenes, in the details, I could notice that the Sony had a lot more details.
This is a shot I know even the Sony would kind of struggle with. Just slowly panning up there from the statues to the buildings to the right. And just straight out of camera, using the least amount of editing, while the Sony's gonna have better quality in the low light and have that better depth of field, with some color grading on the Osmo Pocket here, because it's stabilized, it's actually gonna look more cinematic.
And again, this is the kit lens, so this is just trying to keep it as fair as possible. If I was to throw on my 50mm f1.8, there would be a lot of a difference, a lot of low light scenes between the two, and you'd get more depth of field. But of course, the Sony with the larger sensor in general is going to be better in low light, but the Osmo Pocket held up really well, and it wasn't until I was really looking at the details that I was able to tell. You know, once you start doing your edit, you cut it all up, throw in a LUT and things like that, it's going to even be harder to tell. The Sony's going to retain more detail, as you can see in a lot of the scenes, but for the most part, you can get some really good results in low light if you just know where to cap your Osmo Pocket. And then, as I'm continuing to edit through this video and scrub through everything, again, it's pretty comparable in low light to the Sony a6300, which is one of the best APS-C cameras for low light video. Even though I'm comparing it to the kit lens again, that's about a $700 value. The Osmo Pocket with a built-in gimbal comes in at about, what, $350 now, maybe even a little less. So there's definitely good value in what the Osmo Pocket out of the box is able to deliver compared to something that punches way above its weight class. The thing is, and you'll see in this next portion of the video, is the vlog test that I did. I will say right off the bat that the Osmo Pocket has pretty poor audio quality if the mic isn't facing you. When it is facing, it's pretty good. You just need to make sure you're not covering it with your hand. If you are, you're going to get some pretty bad audio, which you may hear throughout this vlog test here.
This is the Osmo Pocket. All I did was turn around the camera, switch it to follow me, and actually automatically, once it detects a face, it'll just start tracking your face. We're at shutter speed of 1/50, ISO 400. And it's doing really well, and it's still tracking me really well. The only thing is, just lost me right there. I can manually get my face in frame better than it can. However, yeah, and I can't even drag it over my face right now. Oh, it just automatically found me again.
In general, just turning it around and it auto-following you, it's really good, you'll see. The only downside is it's pretty cropped in, so if you want more of your face in frame without it kind of cropping your head in, because I'm looking at it right now, it's pretty much like this, the framing of it. It's like this to this. Whereas here with the 16 to 50mm lens, before I do some digital cropping on it, I mean, you're probably seeing quite far out. My arms are fully extended, whereas when I have the Osmo Pocket like this, Granted, the Sony's a little further back. That's the Sony there. This is me. This is me, no duh. But the Osmo Pocket is more cropped in, but that's because it's doing a combination of, I believe, digital in addition to the actual physical stabilization of the mechanism of the gimbal itself.
But it tends to like to point down a lot more than I'd like it to. When I looked up really quick, it just lost me. If you're just gonna keep it like this, facing you, it holds up pretty well. To start off our comparison, with the Osmo being the newest, how does it compare to everything else? How does it stand out? Well, I would say it's a comparable size to a phone. It's not only a camera, it's a gimbal built in as well. So this is getting better footage than my cell phone, my Google Pixel, which has one of the best low light cameras. My Google Pixel can probably take better photos in low light with its smart features. Let's switch this around again.
That said, though, if you're looking for just a really good vlogging camera, I would take the Osmo Pocket over the Sony a6300. Even in low light, just for the fact, one, it's more portable, so vloggers would like that, or anyone who's just trying to get some kind of video talking to the camera. Whereas the Sony, I don't have a flip-out screen, so I don't know the framing. Even though I'm throwing in a pretty wide lens, I don't know if I'm in focus or not. Even if I know I'm in frame, I don't know if I'm in focus. It's a much heavier setup as well. So there's the downside to that. Just for quick results, the Osmo Pocket is a great setup, and I think it did really well in this vlogging test here.
But in no way am I going to get this kind of steady footage on my Google Pixel without using a secondary gimbal, which I have two of those, and they're a lot heavier and they take up a lot more space than this little Osmo Pocket here. Whereas while the Pixel is doing remarkably well, considering it's just a phone without an actual gimbal and it's just doing this all internally, it's also pretty good. It looks brighter on my Pixel, but that's because I can't do manual settings and actually cap the ISO or set a manual ISO. So while my Osmo Pocket is a little underexposed, it's at 1/50 shutter speed, which is what you want it to be. Double your frame rate. I'm shooting at 24 frames per second. On the Pixel here is at 30. It doesn't have 24.
When you see the comparison in the walking test to the Google Pixel 3, even though the Pixel 3 has really great stabilization, and I was extremely impressed with it the first times I used it in perfect lit situations. The Pixel has optical and digital stabilization, so it's pretty good. Even in low light, it's better than the Pixel 1, which I had previously, and I did a test on that. And it's better than the Sony.
And again, I can't do the ISO or set the shutter speed. So you get a lot more manual flexibility when you're using a Osmo Pocket compared to a smartphone. That's not to say some smartphones don't offer added ability for manual features. Like I've had older phones that could do. I don't know why the Pixel doesn't let you. The reason I'm not using a third-party app for the Pixel is because, one, you lose some features by doing so. It's not, the quality isn't actually good in my opinion, for stability and stuff like that. I think a lot of that has to do with the smart features have to do with the actual app itself, and when you don't use it, you lose out on that. In this scene here, it'll look a lot brighter on the Pixel, but it's actually worse quality because, again, it's not manual. You can kind of see the autofocus.
But it's still not like usable. It's still not on the quality of the Osmo Pocket. The Osmo Pocket still takes the win here.
I would have thought that the Pixel would have had the wider field of view, but they actually, it looks like the Osmo Pocket takes that win. Walking on the cobblestone here. So you can see how it just fluctuates there from dark to bright spots.
So we're at about 14 minutes into this review and comparison here. At the start of the video, we saw a lot of one-to-one-to-one between the Pixel, the Osmo, and the Sony, which should have given you a really good idea, especially in low light, how they perform as far as image quality, stabilization, panning, sideways, upwards, and walking, of course, between the three. We'll have a lot more footage and examples. I think that's a good place to probably wrap it up. You can probably, even just from those first couple minutes, just see the initial comparison there between them and get a good idea for what the quality that you would be getting out of these cameras would be. I think a good way to summarize this is they all have their pros and cons. They all have some unique features. What I'm recording on, the Google Pixel 3, is good in that it's compact. It's always on you. Again, you can just take it out of your pocket and you have a really good camera, especially in daytime. Low light, you're going to be able to rely on it for photos, even though I didn't really show those. I didn't show still examples. Video quality would be good for social media, and that's about it. You wouldn't be able to use this professionally at all. The Sony a6300, my primary driver, what I use a lot, even with the kit lens, you get really great results, and it's super compact and you get high quality footage out of it. However, it doesn't have inbuilt stabilization. So if you really want to get cinematic footage out of it without too much effort or too much planning in advance and being really steady with it in your panning and then having to apply warp stabilizer like you saw in some of those intro cinematic shots, you would have to again pair it with a gimbal. So I have the Zhiyun Crane M, but that requires my backpack over there and I don't always want to carry it. The Osmo Pocket is kind of the unique place between the two in that it's combining some of the unique features of the Pixel 3. It's stabilization, it's really good stabilization, and then just really improving upon it. It's combining the better stabilization of the Zhiyun Crane M, which is more weight and you have to take a dedicated bag or case for it. And of course you have to pair it with the Sony or any mirrorless camera. The Osmo is just built into itself, and it's just unique in that it's a lightweight, all-in-one solution that still gets comparable cinematic footage to the Sony a6300 with the benefit of being stabilized, being small like your camera phone, good battery life, which we didn't touch upon, and a few other features as well. So I think for one person who just wants to get really great footage out of the box, maybe this is something that they're new to or they just want a more convenient solution, then the Osmo Pocket is kind of the clear winner here from this comparison. Granted, again, you get brighter footage and more detail in low light with Sony, but if you don't need, say the Sony's at level 100 in terms of quality, if you're good with, like, to be completely fair, anywhere between 65 to maybe 80% the quality for 90% of the shoots, then the Osmo Pocket is going to be pretty good for you, so long as you're not trying to, like, again, if you're trying to do client work or really professional work that involves a lot of low light, then yes, you're going to need the Sony or something even better than that, like a full frame. But if you're not, if you're just trying to get cinematic footage that's either just for your personal use, some client work that the quality isn't top-notch priority, then yes, you can get really great stuff with the Osmo Pocket. Tied in with that, if you're doing mainly vlogging, then the Osmo Pocket hands down over any of these solutions. The fact that it tracks you, and again, it's panning, if you want to use the actual controls at your disposal there, or if you just want the simplicity of it, just take it out, it locks onto your face. Granted, the framing's a little tight, but if you can deal with that, it's a really great solution there. I do plan on doing kind of these more style of videos where I go more in-depth comparisons, reviews, and things like that, not just for camera stuff, but tech stuff as well. I have a new setup idea which I'm going to be coming up with in the next few days that I want to share with you guys as well. Stay tuned for that. If you have any questions about any of the gear specifically, or have any other products similar to them that you want a comparison to or kind of want my 2 cents on, share those in the comments below and I'll be sure to help out. And then again, I'm trying to go in from what I used to do as far as motorcycle content over to more of the camera and tech kind of content. I understand I've lost a lot of viewers from that and I'm gaining more from here, and kind of that transition before, and I'm kind of at that equilibrium where I'm making a bit of a comeback, so hopefully this will help me continue with that. But again, hopefully you found the video helpful, guys, and until next time, cut the video. The video's over. Bye. This is it. I'm cutting it. I'm gonna press stop. I'm gonna press stop right here.